I never imagined my marriage could survive 3 years without touch. Until a millionaire challenged everything I believed. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day my heart felt like it was being pulled apart at the seams. It was a rainy Tuesday. The sky was bruised, appearing to weep alongside me. I sat alone on the couch, staring blankly at our crumbling marriage on the screen. Each notification from social media mocked me. Friends frolicking, laughing, embracing. Each post cut deeper, like a knife twisting in my gut. My husband, Greg, was in the other room, further away than ever. We'd stopped touching months ago. Our bedtime cuddles replaced with silence. Passion evaporated into regret. He was a kind man, but it felt like he had turned into a ghost. The light in his eyes faded. I could still see the lingering shadows of the man I once knew. But now, it was as if he was a stranger lost in the haze of routine. It wasn't always like this. We had vibrant dreams. We shared laughter, daring adventures, late-night talks filled with secrets and wonder. We were madly in love. I can still taste the sweetness of that first kiss. The world felt alive. But somewhere along the way, we lost it. An unvoiced struggle had wedged between USA's silence I didn't know how to bridge. That day, after weeks of avoidance, Greg walked in, eyes downcast. He carried an unusual envelope, thick and glossy. I could feel the weight of it in the air before he even spoke. I got invited to a millionaire's retreat, he said, his voice trembling. It's all expenses paid. My heart raced. The wealthy? Luxury? Our lives were ordinary, marred by routine. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words got tangled. What does that mean for us? I finally managed to whisper. His eyes flicked upwards, meeting mine for the first time in ages. You could join if you want. My mind reeled. Could I really trust him? The thought of a weekend in luxury sounded like a dream, yet it felt like betrayal. I looked at the envelope again, a world wrapped tightly in promises. What lay behind those lavish walls? Would this millionaire be the unexpected spark? Or would it drive us further apart? I felt a surge of emotion, hope, fear, anger, curiosity, all fighting for dominance in my chest. Just then, the clock chimed like a ghostly echo in the quiet room, pulling me back into reality. I looked at Greg. His expression was a mixture of apprehension and desire. Was he wanting more than just an escape? The question lingered, heavy and unresolved. Would this millionaire challenge bring us back together or shatter everything we knew? My heart thundered in my chest. It was a crossroads. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain continued its relentless drum on the windowpane, mirroring the unsettled storm brewing within me. Greg stood before me, the envelope clutched in his hands like a lifeline, but it was more than just a mere invitation. It was a doorway to another possibility, another life. The thought was both intoxicating and terrifying. What do you really want, Greg? The question slipped out before I could throttle it back. His brows furrowed, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. I leaned forward, the weight of the moment pulling me deeper into my own vulnerability. Is this about us, or is it just an escape? His mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence stretched between us again, two parallel roads extending into an uncertain future. I could see the muscle in his jaw tighten, and I almost regretted pushing him. But staying silent felt like suffocating. That I don't know what I want anymore, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Everything feels so lost. Sometimes I think that if we just break free for a bit, we could remember who we are. Or we could lose what little we have left, I countered, my heart racing. What if you meet someone there? A better version of you. A heavy sigh escaped him, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of my words crushed him. I don't want that. I don't want anyone else. I want us. The sudden intensity in his voice struck me like a lightning bolt, shocking me into silence that I could see the emotion dancing in his eyes: fear, regret, and something else, something delicate and raw. My response hung in the air, laced with uncertainty. I wanted to scream that I needed him, wanted him, but that truth felt buried beneath layers of hurt. That I think it could be good for us, he ventured hesitantly. A chance to be us again. His eyes searched mine, pleading for understanding. I felt the slightest flutter of hope at the corners of my heart, but it quickly dulled under the weight of my doubts. The clock chimed again, pulling me from the contemplation enveloping us. Somewhere, far down the hall, my phone buzzed. I glanced towards it, irritation clawing at my insides. Social media. More fake smiles, more laughter I couldn't relate to. But this time, something caught my eye: an unexpected message from Mia, my best friend. Hey. Remember that guy I told you about? The one who works for the millionaire? He texted Mayhay wants to meet. He says he might be able to get us in. My heartbeat quickened. I knew Mia, her penchant for matchmaking often ended in chaos, but there was something about that message that ignited a flicker of excitement in my chest. A chance to peek into that lavish world? To possibly mend our lives? I hesitated, glancing back at Greg, his expression lost in thought. Could I really consider this opportunity? It felt wrong yet exhilarating. A part of me leaped at the thought that someone wanted to pave a way back, yet the shadows of my insecurity loomed large. Maybe I began, but Greg interjected, his voice slightly more urgent. Maybe what? You're not backing out, are you? I opened my mouth to reassure him, but no words came. I noticed his chest heaving slightly, the desperation to cling on to our fighting flame more than I'd noticed before. Something shifted in me. A sparkle of courage glimmered amidst the thick fog of indecision. I'll think about it, I finally said, opting for the softer path forward, knowing it wasn't a full commitment but rather a steep, fragile bridge towards reconnecting. That he nodded, though uncertainty creased his forehead. What's stopping you? I don't know, I murmured, my heart thumping against my ribcage. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. Another ping from Mia. Also, I heard that the millionaire is actually throwing a gala next week. A charity event. You should let Greg take you. You'd be fun to have along. My heart leaped again, then crashed. A gala? A chance to expose my lonely reality to the exuberance of excess? It felt exhilarating yet terrifying. What if we went? I proposed, keywords barely spilling from my lips, almost a whisper. The retreat on one hand and now. T-San immediate chance to reconnect. Are you serious? Greg asked, eyes widening. Before I could reply, the doorbell rang with an unexpected chimea sound so jovial it shattered the tense atmosphere. I glanced over at Greg. Confusion danced in my heart, the worry about who could be on the other side of that door overwhelming my thoughts. They'll get it, I said on instinct, moving towards the door. As I opened it, hope and anxiety collided in my chest. Standing there, drenched but smiling, was a stranger in a suite, a young man with a warm presence that seemed to brighten the dreary day. He held a small bouquet of flowers, a handwritten note peeking out from behind the delicate petals. Hi. My name's Ethan. I hope this isn't too forward, but I heard about what's going on. I thought you could use some flowers. A small gasping sound escaped me, surprise mingling with curiosity. I wanted to retreat, to close the door and shield myself from whatever kindness this stranger offered. But I could only stand there, dumbfounded by the depth of unexpected compassion. Before I could respond, Greg stepped forward, the wall between us momentarily forgotten. Thank you, he said, glancing at me, uncertainty shifting into an openness I hadn't seen in so long. In that moment, held tight by the stranger's kindness, the dread of what our future held began to morph into something else, something softer, woven with possibility. The weight of our conversations, our unresolved questions, all faded at the edges, replaced by an atmosphere filled with what-ifs. Yet, as I took the bouquet, a fear tugged at me. Would this kindness ultimately add to our struggles, or would it be a thread that stitched us together again? Everything led to this singular moment, and I could feel a new surge of emotional chaos poised to unfold. Would this single decision lead us to a new beginning or thrust us deeper into the unknown? My heart raced as the door closed behind me, sealing us in this new chapter of uncertainty, flower-laden and full of fragile hope. The bouquet rested on the table like a fragile symbol of kindness in an era punctuated by silence and tension. I could still feel the warmth of Ethan's presence lingering in the air, mingling with the evening's coolness, as I cautiously turned the delicate petals over in my fingers. "These are beautiful," I murmured, and yet, the compliment felt shallow against the weight of my emotions. "Do you know him?" Greg asked, his voice a low murmur that broke the spell of quiet tension that had come over us. "No, I don't even know how he found me," I answered, my brow knitted in thought. "But it's sweet." "Sweet or generous?" There was an edge in his tone that made me lift my eyes to meet his. It was an innocent question, perhaps one spurred by confusion, or maybe jealousy that I opened my mouth to respond, but words fell away. The moment hung in the balance, suspended in uncertainty. "Maybe it doesn't matter," I finally said, the weight of honesty resting heavily on my chest. "What does it mean for us?" Greg stepped closer, fingers sliding through his hair with thoughtful frustration. "You know, it's unsettling how easily someone else can swoop in and do something as simple as bring you flowers, and I feel like I'm drowning without words to reach you." The honesty in his voice pierced me, and I felt the familiar pang of guilt creeping in. I realized then that this stranger's gesture had sparked more than just an innocent inquiry. It had ignited questions about who we were and the uncharted territory we now found ourselves occupying. "That I am just trying to find answers," I whispered, the words breaking against my lips like waves against a jagged shore. "Answers to what happened between us. That I just wish I knew what you were thinking," he confessed, stepping back as if to give me space, yet holding so closely to that magnetic pull that had been keeping us anchored together, despite the distance. I bit my lip, torn between the weight of my past and the possibilities of our present. "Mia thinks we should go to that gala. Maybe it could be a step to rediscovering us." Greg's eyes lit up for an instant, fleeting and guarded. "It's a charity event?" He took a breath, as if sizing up the gravity of attending a world so far removed from ours. "Would you want to? Like, really?" It was a question steeped in hope and trepidation, and I felt it resonating deep within me. "I want to. I think it could be a turning point," I admitted, my heart racing with the bittersweet thrill of emerging into new territory. That a sudden flash of excitement spread across his features, mingling with uncertainty. "Then let's do it," and even as our hearts quietly sung the promises that lingered in the air between us, I could feel the undercurrent of fear pooling just beneath the surface. Would exposure to an alternate reality tear us apart or knit the frayed seams of our relationship back together? Invitations often came with expectations, and the stakes felt ever higher. As we moved into the night, laughter and delighted chatter became our soundtrack, blending with the anticipation that shimmered in the darkened space of what was to come. But even as I cherished the small moments of connection, a shadow flickered in my mind. What if I wasn't enough anymore? The gala arrived with an explosion of elegance, lights twinkling as if the stars themselves had descended from the heavens just for the occasion. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and prosperity, painting an enchanting backdrop that felt like a world stitched together in perfection. That I caught a glimpse of our reflections in the marble columns, a couple standing amongst a sea of glitter, but straddling worlds. I was dressed to impress, the fabric hugging me in a way that felt both empowering and suffocating. Beside me, Greg looked dapper, the crisp lines of his suit somehow sharpening the vulnerability that enveloped us. The clinking of glasses and soft melodies surrounded us. A part of me wanted to bask in the vibrant aura of life, while another part cringed under the weight of insecurity. Each smile exchanged felt like a fragile thread straining against our unspoken struggles. My stomach twisted, unsure whether to embrace the environment or retreat into quiet. Then, amidst the people swaying to the music, I noticed someone watching us. A woman, striking with an air of confidence that radiated around her. She was accompanied by an entourage, but her eyes remained fixed on us, assessing, calculating, as if she was studying the pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know existed. "Who's that?" I breathed, my gaze shifting from the celebratory atmosphere towards the woman's magnetic presence that seemed to pull all attention her way. Greg followed my line of sight, and his brow furrowed. "I am not sure. But she seems like someone who's important." There was something inexplicable about her that set my heart racing in a way that was soaked in both intrigue and dread. Suddenly, my insecurities cascaded through me. A feeling of being unworthy and out of place crashed against the excitement that surrounded us, mingling in a way that left me breathless. Just then, the woman turned, her lips curling into a knowing smile. She stepped forward elegantly like a siren emerging from the depths of an alluring sea. "You must be the couple everyone's been talking about," she said with a voice smooth as silk. "The lovers caught in a tempest. How charming." In that moment, the air shifted. Her eyes held secrets, her wisp of insinuation lingering like an enigmatic omen. A storm began brewing once again within me, laced with anxiety. I felt the weight of Greg's hand on my back, steadied in my confusion, but it only met the whirlwind of chaos stirring to life. Suddenly, MIA's message echoed in my mind: this gala could change everything. But change in what capacity? As I stood there, heart racing amid the imploding layers of joy and fear, I realized we were at a crossroads manipulated by forces yet unseen. What lay ahead could shatter us or maybe, just maybe, lead us toward rediscovery. Yet, just as hope flickered in the shadows, the woman leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I've seen relationships like yours before, and trust me, they usually end in heartbreak. Don't let the flame of passion grow cold." Her words rolled over me like an unwanted shroud, wrapping me tighter in uncertainty. A chill trickled down my spine as her haunting gaze held mine hostage, and I found myself trapped in the moment of a shocking revelation. Was she merely forward, or did she know something? Deep down, a worry erupted. It wasn't just about dancing amongst the stars tonight, it was about surviving the storm we were still lost in. And as the music faded into the background, I wondered if this night would bring wisdom or simply fear into our already shaky existence. I wanted to believe in the shine of possibility, but the glimmer of the future felt dangerously intertwined with a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The gala stretched before us, a playground of dreams and deceptions. As I stood frozen in the shadow of the enigmatic woman, a part of me yearned to disappear into the whirl of elegant gowns and perfectly tailored suits, while another part screamed that I needed to confront this jarring disruption. Greg's hands subtly tightened on my back, a reassuring grip attempting to tether me to the reality we shared amidst the tempest brewing outside our comfort zone. "Maybe we should mingle," he suggested softly, noted hesitation creeping into his voice. The warmth of his palm contrasted sharply with the chill of uncertainty growing deep within me. "Yeah," I murmured, yet the word felt like a flimsy veil over the quaking reality beneath it. Stepping away from the woman felt like pulling away from a gravitational force. She flashed that sharp, knowing smile, and in that fleeting moment, I could sense the unspoken challenge swirling between us. The way she held my gaze made it all too clear. She was a part of a world we were only beginning to penetrate, and I felt woefully unprepared for the intricacies hidden within it. Greg moved with a blend of grace and anxiety, leading us to a cluster of familiar faces, a hidden comfort amidst the chaos. Mia leaned against a column, her eyes dancing with mischief and intrigue, instantly charming everyone in her proximity. Beside her stood a couple sharing a flirtatious moment, laughter spilling over like champagne. "What do you think?" Mia asked, arching an eyebrow as she took in the tension she didn't miss in our body language. "Do you feel it too?" "The anticipation, more like a storm," I replied, both my heart and mind rushing in conflict. "But I know I can't hide, not anymore." Greg leaned in closer, his breath warm against my ear. "We can face this together. Just remember, we're not alone in this." I wanted to believe him. I clung to the notion that, somehow, amidst the chaos, we could steer our ship together through the fog. But as I scanned the room, I couldn't shake the feeling of being adrift, how easily the waves would toss us if we weren't vigilant. The evening unfolded, each moment layered with complexity as we waved through acquaintances. Even in shared laughter, I could feel walls being erected around us, sumptuous yet suffocating. Greg moved closer to me with each passing conversation, as if he could sense my unease, but I still caught glimpses of the woman at the edge of my consciousness, her gaze ever present, observing us from a distance as if she were the architect of the tempest. As the event progressed, a growing number of strangers approached us, each attempting to weave their stories into our night, adding to the delightful haze. I smiled and nodded, but my heart was a tempest, churning with shadows and doubts. What exactly was everyone whispering about? Was it just gossip, or was something deeper unraveling at our expense? Then, amidst the swirling conversations, the sound of a muffled argument wafted towards us from a distant corner of the room. The tone was tense, voices gradually rising in a cacophony drowned beneath the orchestral music. I cast a furtive glance towards the source, instinct pulling me to listen closer, despite Greg's presence attempting to ground me. "You promised this wouldn't happen again," a man's voice seethed. A moment later, I caught a glimpse of the woman I had seen earlier, her eyes narrowed, her composure cracking. "I have done everything you asked of me. Do not turn this on me." Before I could grasp the gravity of the scene, it escalated. Another figure emerged, a tall, imposing man, his expression stormy. "You're ruining everything. The board is losing faith," he spat, rage simmering dangerously close to violence. The scene turned my insides to ice. I whipped my head back to Greg, a frantic question in my gaze. "Do you see that? Should we?" But he shook his head, a look of concern washing over his features. "Let's just keep our distance, okay? This is not our fight." Yet it was impossible to ignore the mounting tension, the emotional electric charge that crackled just beyond reach. A wariness settled between us, a whispered agreement of solidarity tinged with anxiety echoing in the air. The night morphed, though the moments blurred in a haze of uncertainty and unwelcome revelations. Eventually, when the noise died down and our heartbeats steadied into sync, we found ourselves wandering towards the balcony, the moonlight spilling over us like a shared secret. Taking a breath, I leaned against the cool railing, hoping the crisp air could clear my head. It was quiet here, just the distant murmur of laughter mingling with the subtle breeze as whispers of reality washed over us. "Are you okay?" Greg asked, concern etched across his handsome features, pulling me back into the comfort of his presence. I nodded, but the unease settled deeper within me. "We're in a different world, Greg. I don't know if I can handle this," I admitted, vulnerability creeping into my voice. That he stepped closer, our reflections shimmering against the horizon like the variables of our lives intertwined. "We're stronger together. We will find our way. I promise." But the memory of that woman lingered like a ghost in the corners of my mind, her warning echoing ominously. My heart clamored with a new question: was the storm barely breaking, or was it the calm before a deluge that could threaten everything we've fought to rebuild? Just as I was about to respond, a sudden disturbance jarred my focus. I turned abruptly to find her, the woman whose name I didn't know, standing mere steps away, a sly smile perched on her lips. "Back to reality, loves? It's a beautiful night for reckoning." The words were a secret invitation tainted with peril, igniting a silent fear that intertwined with the flicker of hope. I could not shake off the feeling that she held the strings to our future, that we were entangled in a larger narrative that had yet to unfold. As I stood there, frozen between the promise of tomorrow and the encroaching shadows, I felt the weight of her gaze probing deeper, crafting the intricate fabric of my fate. One thing was certain: I couldn't look away now. I was teetering on the edge of revelation, the abyss inviting me to discover what lay beneath the surface, both beautiful and terrifying, for every star shines not without its darkness. The chill of the night air felt like a shroud, wrapping around me as the woman moved closer, her presence an intoxicating blend of menace and allure. Greg's hand tightened around mine, his gaze flickering between me and her, the unspoken tension filling the space like smoke. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice steadier than I felt. "Ah, such a curious mind," she teased, tilting her head slightly, the moonlight pooling around her like liquid silver. "I'm merely a guide, a whisper in the cacophony, if you will. But I wonder, are you looking for answers?" I felt my heart race, a mix of fear and intrigue coursing through me. What did she know? Was she as connected to the turmoil inside the walls of this gala as she seemed? Answers to what? Her smile grew, and I could see a flicker of something darker behind her eyes. To who you really are, and what lies ahead for you and your dear Greg. Secrets have a way of unraveling, don't they? I looked to Greg, who seemed to be struggling with the gravity of this exchange, his brow furrowing in concern. "We don't need your kind of help," he interjected firmly, attempting to break the spell she wove around us. Her laughter rang out, melodious yet chilling. "Oh, but you do. You just don't know it yet. There are forces at play here that can't be ignored, and the clock is ticking." At that moment, chaos erupted inside the ballroom. A commotion broke out, and I turned instinctively towards the noise. The atmosphere shifted, laughter turned to gasps, and I could see shadows moving quickly, a blend of panic and confusion washing over the guests. A woman wearing an ornate crimson gown stumbled through the crowd, her face frantic. "He's gone. He's just disappeared." Her voice rose over the crowd, raw with desperation. "Who?" Greg asked, anxiety rising in his tone. "The chairman. He was here," and then she trailed off, her eyes darting in fear. "He was just here." A ripple of murmurs echoed through the throng, and I could feel the fabric of our environment fraying, uncertainty squeezing tightly at my heart. Had the discourse between the woman and myself drawn this calamity upon us through some unseen thread? The woman beside me only smiled wider, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. "You see? The game has shifted." I didn't want her to be right, and yet, the uncertainty hanging thickness in the air felt like a prelude to disaster. But why? Why would anyone do this? "Power, darling," she said with a sly smirk. "Everyone's favorite currency." Her words resonated against the backdrop of our world, messy and imperfect. A jolt of clarity shot through my worries beyond the fancy dresses and polished shoes. This gala was but a facade, a stage for the ambitions of the powerful. It felt like I had stumbled unknowingly into a territory ruled by unseen forces, each soul intertwined in a network of heartache and greed. "Let's go," I said suddenly to Greg, a need to escape the palpable tension coursing through me. But in doing so, I failed to notice the look that passed between Greg and the woman, a fleeting connection built on shared knowledge that stirred fear deep within me. "Leaving so soon?" She chided softly, but her tone was tinged with satisfaction. "That we need to find out what happened," Greg replied, his gaze locked onto hers, grappling with reluctance and determination. The woman stepped back, her demeanor shifting as she tilted her head, considering. "You're curious, I commend that. But heed my warning, finding what you seek could unravel more than you're prepared to confront." That we turned away, hearts pounding in synchronized dread as we moved toward the chaos. Each step drew us closer to the unknown, threatening to plunge us into the depths of a tale far darker than mere whispers of wealth and society. As we began to merge into the throng of panicked guests, my pulse raced not only with urgency but a sinking feeling, a sense that whatever lay ahead was tangled tightly with the fate of that haunting woman. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed an ornate mirror reflecting the interior of the ballroom. Instead of our reflections, I caught sight of a figure lingering just beyond the edge, their face shrouded in shadow. A chill snaked down my spine as I realized the figure was not just part of the crowd, it was someone I recognized, someone I thought I could trust. As confusion swirled, their gaze locked onto mine, piercing through the shifting chaos like a beacon. In that moment, every shared laugh, every tender glance with Greg, faded away, leaving only the gnawing uncertainty of who was truly in command of the story being written around us. My world felt as fragile as glass, poised on the brink of shattering, and just as I opened my mouth to call Greg's attention, the figure turned and disappeared into the crowd. "Wait!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat, but the flow of people swallowed their presence whole. "What is it?" Greg asked, concern flooding his tone as he turned sharply to catch my eye. But I merely shook my head in disbelief. I had no words to describe the haunting weight of that glance, the quiet terror that now echoed the very foundation of my reality. Were we truly alone in this maze of uncertainty, or were we puppets to unseen fates played out by shadowy hands? The answer felt just beyond reach, lurking like a predator in the dark, waiting to reveal its true form. The night stretched on, engulfing us in unease, and nothing could prepare me for the revelation that lay just around the corner, poised to change everything we thought we knew. The chaos of the ballroom seemed to pulse, echoing the racing of my heart as I tore my gaze away from the mass of confusion. Somehow, among the uncontrolled panic, my mind tried to piece together what I had just witnessed. Shadows wouldn't coalesce into familiar shapes, at least, not yet. "What's wrong?" Greg's voice was a low thrum, urgent yet sensitive, pulling me back from the brink of spiraling thoughts. His presence was a lifeline, even as uncertainty hung between us, thick like fog. "That I saw someone," I replied, my words barely finding form. "Someone I know." "The woman?" His eyes flicked around the now fractured ballroom, narrowing in contemplation. "No, not her. It was someone else." They were right there. In the mirror. I gestured to the ornate, glinting surface, but there was only our bewildered reflections staring back at us now. They disappeared before I could see clearly, but I swear before I could finish my thought, the lights above flickered ominously, casting long, twisted shadows across the marble floor. The air thickened, as if anticipating something dreadful. I felt my heart thud louder, each beat igniting threads of anxiety through my veins. "Let's just," Greg started but was cut off by a collective gasp that rippled through the crowd. From the chaotic mass, a figure staggered forward, clutching at his chest, his face pale and sweat-soaked. The hallway was beginning to feel claustrophobic, a web tightening around us as the reality of the situation penetrated even deeper. It was as if the scene had shifted from a celebratory gala to a tightly orchestrated play, and we were merely actors stumbling through our lines. "Call an ambulance." A voice rang out, and the crowd shifted uneasily, some backing away, unsure of what to do. My heart sank deeper as I pushed against the throng, instinctively moving toward the stricken man. "Stay close," Greg ordered quietly, refusing to release my hand. I had the urge to press forward to somehow make sense of this strange turn of events. Was this man connected to the chairman's sudden disappearance? Was it possible this was all part of the same unfolding spectacle? The world around us churned, and as I neared the mysterious man, I could see it in his eyes, fear sharpened by desperation. He's coming for us," he stammered, struggling to contain the wildness in his voice. "You need to get out. It's not safe here." "Who?" I pressed, uncaring of the barrier of voices surrounding him, enveloped by the urgency in his eyes. "Everyone," he gasped, clutching my wrist with an intensity that sent shivers down my arm. "There's something wrong, so wrong. Trust me." Before I could respond, the weight of Greg's grip on my hand tightened, pulling me back farther into the cacophony. "Let's go. Now," he urged, a primal instinct flooding his tone. Confusion swirled around us, but an instinct fueled by excitement mingled with dread kept me rooted in place. Someone was warning us. But why did it feel as though the fraying tether of our lives was unraveling as we stood there, entrapped by shadows? Suddenly, a piercing scream sliced through the air. It soared high, cutting across the turbulent atmosphere of the crowd, bringing everyone to a screeching halt. I turned instinctively, my breath catching in my throat. Greg's eyes darted toward the source, the crimson-gowned woman, now paler than the moonlight, her hands slick with something dark that dripped to the floor like a drop of ink on a white page. "What have you done?" she cried, backed against a wall as gasps turned to murmurs, uncertainty scrambling to re-establish its grip. The man grasping at my wrist turned wide-eyed, grasping desperately at my arm, panic coursing through him like wildfire. "This is it. You have to leave." "No." I found my voice rising above the chaos, even as Greg pulled at me more insistently. A flood of conflicting emotions consumed my senses: fear, confusion, and the smallest ember of hope fighting to break through. "You can't just leave him, he's trying to warn us." I was shouting now, not caring who heard. "We can't let fear dictate our next move. You need to know why this is happening." But the crowd didn't seem to share my resolve. They drifted apart, waves retreating from a shore, everyone trying to escape the destabilizing electric air. In that moment of fear-driven chaos, the world contorted around us, as if reality itself tweaked under the intensity of the knot we were all caught in. As I searched for one last glimpse of that familiar figure, the shadows melded and blended, each face a question rather than an answer. Had I really seen who I thought it was? The truth strained against the awareness of those powerful forces, slipping from my grasp like sand through my fingers. Greg's voice so tentatively anchored draw me back as he turned, desperation now tinging his eyes. "I can't lose you too," he murmured, squeezing my hand tighter. For a moment, we were suspended between the fear that cloaked us like fog and the flickering determination igniting within the depths of our intertwined souls. Before I could respond or even articulate the emotion swelling in my chest, a loud thud resounded through the ballroom, a sharp, foreboding sound that broke apart my thoughts, sending a jolt of panic through me. The very ground around us seemed to tremble, vibrating the mantra of Fatia's stark revelation of what was unleashed, spilling secrets and danger that would redefine everything I thought I knew. In that moment, the flickering lights above burst into darkness, plunging the ballroom into unrelenting shadow, and the whispered warnings gave way to a clanging alarm blaring through the void. The chaos only deepened as icy hands of dread wrapped around our hearts, and I understood one immutable truth: the tapestry of our lives had begun unraveling, and the only thing left to decide was how we would confront the dark journey ahead. The darkness engulfed the ballroom, thick and suffocating, as the clamor of choking breaths and frantic whispers swallowed my thoughts. I clung to Greg's hand, a fragile lifeline, while the urgent beats of the alarm cut through the tense atmosphere like a knife. Panic was no longer just an echo, it reverberated from every corner of the room, a living thing crawling under our skin. Where do we go? I shouted over the cacophony, my heart racing even as my mind scrambled for direction. We can't just stand here. Greg's grip tightened around my fingers, anchoring me amidst the turbulence swirling around us. We have to find a way out, he urged, trying to peer into the blackened recesses of the hall. Follow me. As we stumbled forward into the unknown, navigating through terrified faces and bodies pressed together, the woman in red remained etched in my mind, pale, trembling, and stained with something dark. I couldn't shake the malicious threat of her fear or the warning of the man who had grasped my wrist like it was a lifebuoy. I wished desperately to reach back, to uncover their stories, to weave them into my own before the darkness swallowed them whole, but Greg's voice anchored me again, fierce and protective. Stay close. We're getting out. I nodded, though fear burgeoned in my chest. Each shadow loomed larger, carrying whispers of danger, amplified by the terrifying flickers of light that tried to illuminate our path. Just as I seemed to gain my bearings, a scream pierced through the air. A voice utterly lost in despair. Help. Someone, please. It was muffled by the chaos but unmistakably real. Greg hesitated for a fleeting moment, uncertainty flaring in his eyes. I can't just leave them. I blurted, before I even understood the weight of my own words. Something deep within urged me to carry an empathetic pull that had always guided me, now igniting even brighter amidst the darkness. Okay, he relented, though I could see the tightness in his jaw, the worry etched on his brow. As we turned toward the muted cries for help, hope flickered softly. The swirling mass thickened, but instead of retreating, I pushed forward, my resolve shimmering faintly against the mire of despair. Amidst the chaos, I reached for the faint echoes of humanity, reaching out for them like fragments of hope. Eventually, we came upon a cluster of people huddled near a broken column where the lights barely flickered, revealing a young boy cowering beneath a table. His eyes were wide, reflecting all the terror that churned around him. Hey! It's okay, I called gently, crouching to his level. We're here to help. Can you come out? In that moment, hope rose. He needed us. There was something profound about being the harbingers of light, even as shadows danced just beyond our reach. Greg shifted closer beside me, casting a protective shadow over the boy. Please, he added gently, coaxing the child out. You're safe with us. The boy peered out hesitantly, his breaths rapid and shallow. With a trembling hand, he reached out, finally taking a step from his hiding place. I was overwhelmed by the enormity of this small victory as he pressed against me. I felt a warmth swell in my heart, a fleeting connection pulsing amidst the overwhelming dread, but just as I felt the world shifting from darkness toward light, a sharp crash echoed, reverberating from deep within the darkened halls, intensifying the chaos. The air shifted, bringing with it a sense of foreboding, and I felt Greg's arm encircle my waist, pulling both me and the boy closer. Suddenly, the doors at the far end of the ballroom swung open violently, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the glowing emergency lights that flickered outside. Gasps rose like a wave crashing against the shore, a mixture of awe and terror blending seamlessly. Out of the way. The figure thundered, his voice resonating with authority. My breaths hitched in my throat as a flicker of recognition ignited within me. It was him, the man I had seen in the mirror. Who are you? The question slipped from my lips, but it was lost amidst the chorus of frightened murmurs. Everyone, listen. He shouted, taking a step forward, the confidence in his posture undeniable. The only way to survive is to trust me. I know what's coming, and I can help you escape. The crowd seemed to part instinctively, fear of the unknown battling against the allure of his promise. But even in their hesitance, I felt the fragile thread of hope weaving itself tighter. It was as if the universe was aligning just so, nudging us towards something more than mere survival. Your lives depend on it. he pleaded, sincerity igniting the air as it wrapped around us, a desperate lifeline being thrown into turbulent waters. That I stole another glance at Greg, whose face had gone pale, every emotion collapsing into wide-eyed disbelief. The boy shivered against me, clutching my arm. Would we really follow a stranger who appeared to know so much? And just as the decision began to form in my mind, a shriek came from behind. A shadow fell too quickly, and the darkness threatened to claim another soul. Run! Greg screamed, and in that moment I knew there was no going back. The shadows pulsated with menace, consuming whispers, my heart racing and pounding like an animal desperate to escape. With the boy still clutched against me, we turned, following the shadowy figure who had so accurately captured the whirlwind of emotions we all felt. It could have been foolishness or bravado blinding our common sense, but in that fractured moment, I understood one undeniable truth: the pulse of hope, however tenuous, was worth chasing into the depths of the unknown. I couldn't help but wonder, however, as I ran toward maybe our only chance of survival, who was this man? And what dark fate did we truly run toward in our desperation to reclaim safety in our lives? The answers awaited us, lurking just behind the veil of shadows. As we sprinted towards the flickering light of the doorway, a cacophony of shouts and the heavy thud of fear followed close behind. Greg's grip on my arm intensified, as if he feared that even a second's hesitation would cost us everything. I could feel the boy's small body trembling against my side, and each shudder of his fragile frame sent a jolt of determination through me. We had to make it out. The tall man had stepped aside just enough to let us through, though I caught a glimpse of the severity etched in his features like a sculpted mask of resolve and burden. "Keep moving," he urged, his voice booming above the chaos. "Stay together." We transitioned from the ballroom's wounded heart into a hallway bathed in crimson emergency light. The air was thick, almost electric, with the tension of unsaid words and unasked questions hanging between us. I could feel the boy clutching tighter to my waist, and I shifted, lowering my voice to offer him shaky comfort. "You're brave. Just stick close." His eyes shone like two stark candles trying to keep the dark at bay, but fear dulled their brightness. I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply. I needed him to see that there was hope in the world still, even amidst this nightmare. Greg veered closer, brushing against my arm. "What if he leads us into a trap?" he whispered, casting furtive glances behind us, as though fending off the shadows with his gaze alone. "We don't know anything about him, I know," I replied through clenched teeth, my heart pounding not just with fear, but with the weight of our circumstances. "But where else do we go? We have to trust him." A loud bang resonated from the ballroom, sending tremors through the walls. "Hurry!" the man called again, urgency curling into his voice like a spiraling flame. I took a risk, darting ahead, urging Greg and the boy to follow. As we turned another corner, a faint light flickered at the end of the corridor, illuminating a single door marked with nothing but a peeling white paint. But before we reached it, a wrenching scream pierced the air from behind, launching a new wave of desperation into my spine. I turned, instinctively, hoping the child would not falter. "Go!" the man commanded, pushing forward like a shield, though uncertainty dripped from the edges of his intensity. "I'll hold them off. There's no time, no!" Greg shouted, his panic palpable. "We can't leave you." But the man's expression shifted, a strange mixture of acceptance and vulnerability crossing his face. "You have to protect the boy. Whatever happens, don't look back." Time slowed, stretching the seconds into unbearable lengths, and the weight of choice hung in the air like a promise and a curse. I felt a surge of defiance and heartbreak. "Stay safe," I called out to him, yet I could see that he already bore the weight of an unspoken burden. With a crushing rush, the darkness behind us seemed to pulse forward. "Please," I yelled, pouring every ounce of emotion into the plea. "You can't do this." But in his eyes flickered a quiet understanding, a depth of knowing that illuminated his intentions even as shadows swirled around him. He nodded once and turned, bracing himself against the impending tide. "Now!" he barked, and with horror pulling at my throat, I spun and dashed towards the door, urging Greg and the boy along. The pounding dread raced in my chest, but so did an unyielding belief that we had to keep moving a flame against the dark. As we pushed through the door, a harsh gust of wind whipped around us. Outside, a maze of trees surrounded the entrance, shrouded under ominous clouds that threatened to burst. I felt breathless, the sensation of the cool air rushing against my skin acting both as a sanctuary and a torment. Where do we go now? Greg gasped, glancing back, his face marred with indistinct grief and fear. I opened my mouth to respond when a crack of thunder echoed through the canopy, and in that moment, a low rumble followed, a sound so unsettlingly familiar that my heart plummeted. We can't stay here, I cried, pulling Greg and the boy deeper into the embrace of the forest, but as we ran, the realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. It was a game of survival, and if this man had faced the shadows without hesitation, then perhaps there was something deeper entwined in this darkness. I glanced at the boy, his small frame moving with surprising agility, and wondered if his innocence could still be preserved. I could feel my thoughts unraveling, pulling me into the crevices of uncertainty. The shadows in the trees danced ominously, but every step we took felt like we were losing a part of ourselves. There was no going back, not now. Just as we ducked behind a thick trunk to catch our breath, gasping in the trembling silence, an earth-shattering boom shook the ground beneath us. Go! Greg shouted, the intensity of his voice ripped from the depths of his fear that I stumbled forward, but the ground suddenly shifted. A heavy weight bore down as roots sprang up, coiling around our ankles, yanking us downward into the darkness that awaited below. Panic clutched at my throat, and as I fought to free myself, the shadows reached out with greedy fingers, pulling me in. Don't let go, I cried out, desperate for the warmth of their hands, but as I was consumed by the twist of roots and darkness, a revelation pierced through the chaos. What if this shadow had been lurking in my life all along, and we just hadn't seen it until now? But before I could grasp the full implications of that thought, the world around us cracked, and I was swallowed whole. The darkness that enveloped me was disorienting, as if I had fallen into a void devoid of sound and light. I reached out instinctively, grasping for something, anything, to steady myself. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a desperate drummer, and I felt the cold earth beneath me, slick and unforgiving. Is everyone okay? Greg's voice echoed, faint but reassuring, reverberating through the oppressive silence. I felt the heaviness of the roots tightening around our ankles, but I couldn't find him or the boy. Panic rose in my throat like bile. Greg? Over here, he called, relief flooding my chest as I scrambled toward the sound. The boy was with him. I heard him whimpering softly. I pushed myself forward, fighting against the pull of the dark tendrils that sought to keep us where we were lost, ensnared in both the physical grasp of the roots and the suffocating terror that threatened to engulf us entirely. My fingers brushed against Greg's arm, and I clung to him desperately. Hold on tight. The three of us were wrapped together in a human knot, our breath quickening, the shared fear rooting us to this place like the very earth that trapped us. I took a deep breath, letting its oxygen fill my lungs. Something within me sparked a faint glimmer, a beat of resolve amidst the chaos. We can't give up, I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince more, myself or the two of them. We have to find a way out. Yet, as the roots twisted tighter, I felt the pull of despair, a cold finger of dread creeping along my spine. What if this was it? What if we never made it back to the surface, never escaped the grasp of darkness? I shook my head violently, willing away those thoughts. We had come too far. I had fought too hard for us to surrender now. Suddenly, a soft glow pierced the murky darkness. I squinted, surprised at the illumination that fought to break through. Look! I exclaimed, pointing toward the light. It flickered like a distant star, promising safety but shrouded in mystery. We have to move toward that, yes. Greg echoed, his voice stirring something within me. Let's go. With that small rallying cry, I felt strength return, and we began to push against the roots, writhing and squirming to break free. The struggle was furious, but we were moving, inching toward the flickering light, hearts thudding in unison as adrenaline coursed through our veins. The world warped around us, the earth trembling, yet with every inch we gained, I could feel the threads of darkness loosening their grip on us. Just as hope surged, the ground beneath us shuddered once more, a deafening crack resonating through the air as the roots spasmed with renewed ferocity. What's happening? The boy cried, his small voice laced with true terror. Stay close, I urged, gripping onto him harder, my fingers pressing against his fragile shoulder as if my touch could shield him from the chaos that I am that moment. The ground opened beneath us, a violent fissure splitting apart the darkness that held us captive. I felt the world shift again, and before I could brace myself, we tumbled, spiraling down into the unknown, and then silence. A heavy weight pressed down on me again, but this time it wasn't the roots. I gasped for breath, desperately lifting my head and searching for any sign of my companions. As my eyes adjusted, I felt a warmth wrap around me, soft yet powerful, welcoming like the embrace of a loved one. "Greg?" I whispered, my voice trembling with uncertainty. There was a sense of movement nearby, a shadow across the light, and suddenly, the boy's face appeared, wide-eyed. "We're okay," he said, confidence blossoming from the familiarity of the shadows. And for a moment, I almost believed him, but where was Greg? I twisted around, heart thumping like a war drum, casting about in the warming illumination. "Where's Greg?" My voice was sharp and desperate, slicing through the serene atmosphere that had encapsulated us. "I don't know," the boy replied, the brightness of his innocence dimming with realization. "No," I breathed, a wave of dread washing over me. "He was right here." I shifted, straining to peer into the light, fear clawing at my insides. And just as I turned back toward the boy, the warmth shifted, morphing into an intense heat that pulsed, pulling me in. "Wait!" I shouted, instinctively trying to lunge back toward the light. But as I did, the heat surged, and I felt something at the edge of my awareness, the shift of the unknown. A shadow emerged, a figure silhouetted in the brightness, and a sense of foreboding crawled along my skin. "You have come far," a voice resonated, smooth yet like gravel, igniting something old within me. "But are you ready to accept the truth?" "What truth?" I wondered, my heart hammering in my chest. My mind swirled with doubts and questions, and as I stood on the precipice of revelation, I braced myself for whatever truth awaited me in this disorienting maze of light and darkness. "Where's Greg?" I begged, my voice shaky, but the figure only smiled a knowing smile that sent cold tendrils threading through my being. "Your choices are what brought you here," it mused ominously. "But the weight of what you seek may yet shatter you." Before I could respond, before I could grasp the meaning behind those words, the ground shifted again, and all at once, the light around me blinked then extinguished. When the darkness wrapped around me again, it was suffocating and complete. I felt the weight of despair crush down, a blanket of fear thick enough to stifle breath. "Greg!" I shouted into the void, though I knew it was futile. My heart ached with a raw desperation. I could almost feel the bond we shared fraying, slipping through my fingers like sand on a breeze. I had faced shadows before me, isolation, our silent struggles, but now, standing against this specter, defenses crumbling, I realized perhaps those were but mere reflections of the deeper shadows hidden away. Here, I stood between heartache and hope. My eyes strained against the darkness, searching for any hint of a way back to the warmth, the life we had almost remembered. Suddenly, the ground shuddered, and a faint flicker broke through the oppressive darkness. I lunged toward it, propelled by instinct. "Please, please," my voice trembled as desperation painted my path. The light grew brighter, illuminating a wide corridor leading away from despair. With each hurried step, I could hear echoes of Greg's laughter, time-worn whispers in an arena of remembrance. "Hold on," I urged myself. "You both need this." My heart pounded against my ribcage as I weaved through the darkness, propelled forward by the ghost of his voice. But deeper, a thrum of uncertainty pulled at me. I could feel the past closing in, memories of arguments laid bare, of unspoken fears that fettered us, the brittle limbs of love trying so desperately to hold on to one another. Would we ever truly see each other again? Would we navigate through what was left in that ballroom? The flickering light morphed into a kaleidoscope of colors, enveloping me in a soft, gentle glow. "You're almost there," I coaxed myself, squeezing my eyes shut for a moment. The brightest flashes of hope danced behind my eyelids, visions of an embrace, laughter shared over morning coffee, the intimate closeness of hearts aflame. Then, I gasped what felt like eternity squeezed into a moment, snapped like a fragile branch. I broke through. And there, standing before me, drenched in the ethereal light, was Greg, his face a tapestry of concern and relief, reflecting back all the vulnerability we had ever shared but hadn't embraced. "I thought I lost you," he whispered, voice trembling, arms reaching out toward me. The moment engulfed me, crashing over the tension mixed with weighty memories. I felt the heat of his presence, the warmth of his arms wrapping around me, enveloping my doubts. "You didn't lose me," I murmured, tears threatening to spill. This was a fiery return to connection I had been longing for. "I'm right here," for a heartbeat, the world distilled to the simplicity of that moment, his warmth against mine, the unspoken promises igniting like fireflies dancing into the dusk. "You were so brave," he breathed against my shoulder, and I felt the shudders trembling through his voice, but then, the light began to dim, shadows creeping in from the edges. "Greg, look!" I exclaimed, panic constricting my chest as shadows began curling once again, beckoning the engulfing darkness. The glimmers of panic poured back in as a profound realization settled heavy in the pit of my stomach. This wasn't merely about survival, it was about connection, about us courageously facing the shadows lurking between our hearts that we have to confront it together. I urged. "No more running." His eyes widened, reflecting the swirling memories, past wounds intermingling with possibilities. "Together," he echoed, a vow 200 now transformed with newfound meaning. He reached for my hand, and together we stepped forward, facing the dark mass at the end of our luminous path. As we moved closer, the shadows began to solidify, swirling like smoke, but instead of fear, I felt a surge of strength. "We will not let you take us," I shouted defiantly, surprising even myself with the fierce protectiveness surging through me, and then it came, whispers, echoes of our deepest insecurities, the unworthy voices we had fed for so long. Each revelation crashed over me like thunder, but held by Greg's hand, I felt him stir alongside me. "You aren't enough," the shadows hissed, pulling into the recesses where pain and trauma wound deeply. "You'll fail." But Greg stepped forward, undeterred. "Your power over us ends now," he declared. He sounded revitalized, fortified, and I felt it too, the echoes of our love merging into a chorus that rebuked the darkness. "We are enough," I shouted over the chaos, my heart swelling as defiance ignited within. "And we are here together. You cannot control us anymore." For a moment, the shadows hesitated, and in that fragile pause, clarity struck through me. My heart surged with the truth that had led me all along. "You may have pulled us apart, but we will rise from this." The shadows quivered under our united front, their substance beginning to unravel as Greg and I stepped closer, anchoring one another in unyielding solidarity. Our vows echoed, surging, woven with courage and belief, igniting the light that had been almost extinguished, and then, the darkness recoiled, shadows dissipating under the strength of our resolve. The delicate threads of love and pain fused together as we emerged from the chaos, as the light swelled and washed over us. In that breathtaking moment, I knew I had found my true self through this journey through Greg, and amidst all this mess, I felt alive. As the shadows melted away to reveal a night sky glittering with stars, I turned to Greg, taking his hands into mine. "We survived," I breathed, disbelief washing over me. Together, we had confronted the storm, and together we had found a way back to each other. Looking into his eyes, I saw the spark of our connection flickering back to life, ready to warm us through any upcoming chill. I squeezed his hands, the terror banished and love blooming anew. "This is our beginning, isn't it?" With a tender smile, he nodded, and enveloping me in a fierce embrace, he vowed, "No matter what comes next, we will face it together." And as we pulled apart, the enormity of the moment dawned, a beautiful turning point that gracefully turned into acceptance. In the wake of everything, the last memory I held was not of despair, but of resilience, our hearts entwined, surging with hope anew. "The past is but a shadow we can transform," I whispered softly, gazing up at the starry sky above. "And our story continues," and so, with hearts intertwined, we stepped forward on this journey together.